Welcome to Writing for Psychology featuring Jane Halonen along with me, Garth Neufeld. This 7-part Psych Session series features conversations around topics related to writing in psychology, from finding opportunities to finding inspiration and so much more. Quite simply, this was my personal attempt to learn something from one of the masters in our field and to share it with you, our audience. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, Jane. Let's talk about organizing and composing in writing. And
Okay.
And I know we've hit on some of this, but I've been thinking for the last few minutes in between our last conversation about questions I have specifically about organizing. We talked about slides and presentations, and I think maybe what we're talking, maybe you can help me with this, but I think what we're talking about here is really thinking about the message that you have, what you're trying to say, who your audience is and how they are going to take in what you are saying, whether in written or if you're giving a talk or something like that. But how you move and organize thoughts and ideas in order to make sure those two things happen, that your message is clear, that your audience gets it. What do you think about that?
All right. So the process of composing is something we did talk about in our last conversation. But I think what I would add to the discussion that we had is that I'm an outlining freak. Whether that is a concept map, I may start with a concept map. Here's the central piece of what it is I'm going to talk about. Now, what are all the things that matter around that? That's a good way to get started. But I will fairly quickly convert that into a traditional outline with Roman numerals and subpoints to make sure that I get the linear focus that I want that sometimes is not as apparent in a concept map.
Well, so this is exactly what I'm talking, and this is how this is different from the last conversation we had, because we were kind of out there in the abstract talking about creativity, inspiration, and what you're saying is that there's a moment where you really dump and organize from the beginning. I love that you use a concept map. I'm reminded of our last conversation that you don't know what you don't know. And so you'll be limited a little bit by, how much reading you've done in the area or how long you've been at this for. And so that concept map could be limited. So everything I know about this idea might be very different from what everything you know about an idea. But you're saying that one of the first things you do is you don't follow, because I think there's another strategy where you could just start at the top of the page and really work your way down as things occur to you. But that's not what you're doing.
No.
Okay.
I like to work in idea chunks. And once I have a chunk, I can fill in some detail there, but I can move it around if I think of it as this mobile piece of information. If I'm working more systematically top to bottom, I think I would find that more challenging. I'd probably want it to be prettier along the way if I'm doing it that way. And this allows me to be kind of chaotic.
When you're working through, I'm imagining this Roman numeral outline. When you're looking at that, where do you get stuck from an outline perspective? Or maybe like what are the barriers to organization? And I'm looking more for the problems that we need to solve when we're putting together a talk. And if you don't have anything right away, I can talk about my experience, which is
talk about your experience, and that'll give me more time to incubate.
Okay. So my experience, I'm not thinking about one particular time, but is that I may be working on an outline and I find myself on a rabbit trail of sorts where it's a really interesting idea, but it's really not part of the flow of where the idea is. So I could see myself getting distracted with that. I can also remember times where maybe I had a study that I was really interested in, or an idea that I wanted to talk about, and it belonged in multiple places. I couldn't quite place it into the outline. I could put it here, or I could put it there. So I'll start with those, maybe.
Well, I like the rabbit trail, especially because it leads to a rabbit hole in which you can get lost. And I've certainly had that experience where I've been so taken with something that I write it at a level of detail that it doesn't work in the paper. And once I get all the parts assembled, I can spot, oops, there's a problem, that this is too much information, or it's too obscure, or there's something wrong with it and it needs to go. That's why revision is so critical. So I like the rabbit hole image. Remind me again the second thing you said.
Well, the second one is I've been in this situation where I'm trying to introduce an idea or talk about something, and I can't quite figure out where it fits into.
Yes. Okay. So what I like about concept maps is that you can put it multiple places in concept maps, and you're not violating any rules. And so it may turn out that as the paper, whatever the process is that you're doing organically, as you begin to fill in the spaces, it will become apparent where it works and where it doesn't. Or if it is the case that you can justify using that same example or reference twice, that may be possible as well. But I think having some structure actually, ironically, frees me to be more creative about how it comes together in the end.
I find a similar principle in music with improvisation, that improvisation is best done within boundaries, that you need those, or else it can get off the rails really, really fast. And so I imagine that's kind of similar to what you're talking about here.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of rubric use, that a lot of individuals resist using rubrics because they say it takes all the creativity out. And I say just the opposite, that the rubric gives you those gentle parameters that then free you to be able to do some pretty interesting things within those boundaries. So I think that there's a parallel there with improvisation.
Okay, so do you ever find that there are some really good ideas that want to come through in your writing and you don't know quite where to place them? Let me say that a different way. Do you ever find that there are some points in your writing that are very, very strong? And so you write a manuscript up and you know that this is the point that is really going to resonate with people, and if so, where do you put that? Does it deserve a special place in the article or in the manuscript, or does it speak for itself wherever it is?
Well, if there's a central purpose, then I'm going to make sure that my central purpose is highlighted in the beginning, and I'm going to come back to it in the end. There are lots of writing specialists who say the goal of writing is tell people what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you've told them. And I think that's not a bad set of advice for good writing. And so if there really is something that I want people to take away, I will hammer it. It's not just that I'm going to stick it in paragraph 7 and hope somebody catches it.
Oh, that's interesting. So that becomes the kind of the central on a concept map. That is the thing in the middle.
That would be the thing in the middle. Yeah. Right.
And so, we may be telling students to organize with topic sentences at the beginning of each paragraph that is really pointing towards that. How does how does your writing style now at this stage of your career, how does it differ? Because it's more advanced than that, than putting a topic sentence at the beginning of each paragraph. But you're saying really that it's a value that you have for your writing is to make sure you tell them again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that has changed much. In my life prior to being a psych major, I was a journalism major. That instilled some discipline in me about how to do writing and how to do writing on deadline. And I think that also helped me learn how to cut the crap out of my writing. So I don't think that has been a big change in my writing style over time.
Okay, and we are going to talk about cutting the crap out of writing because we're going to talk about editing at some point here soon. But as we finish up this conversation, I guess I just want to talk about your process. So once you get that that kind of linear organization, at that point, are you just dumping ideas into that? If so, is it bullet points? Are you free writing? How are you getting your thoughts into that outline?
I didn't really realize there was a distinction until we started having these conversations. But when I'm writing for presentations, I'm bullet pointing. When I'm writing for text, I am writing in full sentences.
Why?
I'm not sure. I know the answer to that. I know if I'm writing for text, then ultimately I'm going to be moving sentences around and editing and changing, but I want to get the complete thought in a controlled fashion down. And when I'm doing presentations, I feel a little bit more freedom about how to put things together, since I know I'm going to have the opportunity to revise that right up to the moment I take the microphone. I don't know if that explains it or not, but it's clear to me that those two processes are a little bit different.
Yeah, it seems to me like those are maybe different skills. And it's pretty complex, right? Because your audience is different. The environment is different. The whole thing is different. So I'm just thinking through how writing in full sentences, I'd like to mine this a little bit more. Why is it that writing in full sentences works for you there? Because I would tend to approach those the same. And so I know the answer is at this point you don't know. Mm-hmm. And that might be how we end. I'm just okay. So when I write a complete sentence out in an outline, I guess maybe you might have more of a confidence of how that sentence exists by itself, or that idea exists by itself. For me, those sentences, they're a little shaky from the beginning. I wonder if there is a confidence in just your writing that this thing can exist and probably will endure, maybe even through editing.
Well, let me clarify. When I'm working on an outline form, the outline does have bulleted points or concepts. But when I move away from the outline, that's when I begin writing in full sentences. So that might be a little bit different than the way we're setting this up.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you ever have problems producing enough information in an area on your outline? And if so, does that get cut, or is that never an issue for you?
It's not often an issue for me, but if I do have problems, that is when I might turn to some additional inspiration, whether that is quotations, whether that's go to my favorite authors to see if they've written anything about it, whether it's doing a Google Scholar search from the comfort of my recliner, anything that helps me round out what I'm thinking is fair game.
Okay. Well, Jane, this has been organizing and composing writing for writing in psychology. And next, we are going to talk about revision, which I know you love 7 times.
I do. Yes.
Okay.